Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session. I know I can speak for Alan and Juan when we say that we are very excited to share about our experiences here. So we are on the frontera. We are on the border of El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico. So we are very happy to meet you all. So thank you all for attending. So what I would like to do, I thought of first introducing myself and my work and how I was going to go about that. So my name is Ruby Montana. I am the founder and director of a nonprofit here called Bridge Pups Rescue. I do also teach at the University of Texas at El Paso, but instead of telling you about my work, what I would like to do is just share a brief 7-minute video that is, PBS El Paso put together, and they did a wonderful job doing this. And it's also Emmy nominated. I'm very proud to share that. And I think after you see this video, you'll have a much better idea of what I do and then how both Alan's work and Juan's work has very much intersection with mine. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Please feel free to type in any questions you have. I will absolutely be sharing um, those questions. So, oops, that is not what I wanted to do. There we go, slideshow. All right, so this is my logo, Bridge Pups Rescue. And so here is the short little video. Okay. Whenever there is a dog that crosses, it's sort of become like the unwritten protocol that CBP or Border Patrol calls me. We get them vetted, we get them spayed and neutered through the county, and then we find them forever homes. My name is Ruby Montana, and I founded Bridge Pups Rescue. My brother became a CBP agent back in 2012, and he started noticing that dogs would cross along with people too. I just got Lucy, the latest little migrant pup. She's so tiny. And he would notice that very often these dogs were very skinny. They were covered in fleas and ticks. They were filthy, limping. They were in great need of help. At first, he started hiding them from other agents and calling me to pick them up, on the sly. But fortunately, other agents started catching on to what we were doing, and they were fully supportive. And so we've actually been doing this for a very long time, even though Bridge Pups Rescue, the name, the actual organization is fairly new, but we've been doing it for a little over a decade. Last year, there was a big influx of migrants that crossed with dogs as well.
If there isn't a place for the dog to go when Ruby gets a call from CPB, they're going to release the dog. And I imagine a dog, maybe for example, one as sick as Captain Jack was.
Everyone, I'm here with the latest Bridge pup. He's got real bad mange, as you can see on his little ears. He is a mess.
If he had been released back to the streets, what was really going to happen to him? He was already severely underweight, and then plus with just having the different infections he had, like I can't imagine that he would have had a very long life expectancy back on the street.
So as of now, it's basically arbitrary. If there happens to be a kind-hearted Border Patrol agent, then they will do something to help the family with their pet. They'll either call animal services or oftentimes they will call me. If it's not a kind Border Patrol agent, as has happened, the pet we don't know what happens. They likely just let it go on the Juarez side, which is very heartbreaking. A lot of people don't really consider the fact that many of these migrants actually cross with their pets. They go through incredible hardships, really putting their lives at risk just to have a chance here to make it to the border. And unfortunately, there is no set protocol for when they do reach the border with their pets. The family that owns Lupe, who is the dog that I still currently have. She's a little miniature poodle. They fled Venezuela to seek political asylum. Unfortunately, their story is incredibly harrowing. She came from Venezuela. They were here seeking political asylum because unfortunately, The husband was a police officer and he was killed for simply speaking out against the government. So they had every right to come here seeking that political asylum. Their lives were at risk, their lives were in danger. So they had no choice but to come here and just try to save themselves. At one point, they were crossing through the Darien Gap, which is incredibly dangerous. They were wading through water for 6 hours. And at one point, they had to make the choice either keep carrying Lupa and sharing her, tossing her, amongst themselves, or let go of their luggage. And so they made the conscious choice to let go of their luggage, so that way they could be able to carry her across that dangerous spot. So it's really heartbreaking. And once they did get here, they encountered a really cruel and unkind Border Patrol agent who threatened them and basically told them they had a choice to make. It was either get rid of Lupe or they wouldn't be able to cross in. And they were crying, they were incredibly emotional. And it just so happened that a very kind Border Patrol agent saw what was going on. She stepped in and she reached out to me. She'd actually reached out to me before with just regular Bridge pups that crossed from Juarez. That's how she ended up with me. And it wasn't until they got to New York, the family got to New York, they didn't even know they were being sent there, that they were able to reach out and confirm that Lupe was okay. There we go. Reuniting the Venezuelan migrants with their animals has truly been one of the most profound and emotional moments that I've ever had in my entire life. The fact that they are again that they go through so much just to get here, and they're not going to leave their dogs behind, just speaks volumes of who those people are and how much those pets mean to them. And so when you see that moment where they are reunited, I don't think there's a dry eye anywhere nearby. It's beautiful. And I think it's just testimony to the power of the love between pets and their humans. Again, that's just all testament to how much they love their pets. These migrants, these immigrants, these refugees, they're no different than us. And it kills me that some people base compassion on nationality. It shouldn't matter where they come from or who they are. Compassion is compassion because humans are humans. And that goes to not only the humans, but to their dogs as well. All right, so hopefully this video gave you a better idea of what I do, and I certainly could not do what I do alone. For quite a few years, one of the biggest assistance that I got was from Juan Ortiz. Actually, I don't even remember how exactly our paths crossed. However, I'm very, very, very grateful because Juan was actually the only shelter in all of El Paso that would work with me in allowing these immigrants to have their pets with them while they were seeking assistance and getting settled. Juan has gone above and beyond for these families and their pets. So without further ado, I would very much like to hand over the mic to Mr. Juan Ortiz to share about his many, many experiences doing this kind of work. So Juan.
It was from getting in touch that we were both helping outside of Sacred Heart, and people directing you towards me because we were out of necessity taking people into what was our organizational home, and it wound up becoming a shelter space just to get people out of the cold. But I'll introduce myself briefly. Personally, I'm a PhD student in Mexican American Studies and American Indian Studies at the University of Texas in El Paso. I write a lot about these issues because my dissertation is on mass incarceration on the border. But just from being generationally from El Paso, ancestrally from El Paso, because I come from indigenous roots to El Paso, we've lived through all iterations of this kind of xenophobia and racial violence. So for me, it's just part and parcel of things that have gone on throughout historical cycles. But I'll just give a prelude to all the other things to say, if you can, I don't think I can switch the slides, right? But if you could, basically, in essence, everyone knows by now because it's exploded onto the national, scene, what was happening here, and it's been happening for generations in terms of cycles of migration. This particular cycle, of course, was defined by people from South America, which used to be very, it was an anomaly here. To like, it was out of the norm to get people from so far away, because it is such a treacherous, like you were saying, a harrowing journey. And so we started noticing first on the Juarez side, and then I think it really just to get people not familiar with immigration policy. After zero tolerance policy, there had been a really established historical humanitarian aid community in El Paso that did pretty well with all of these cycles. But I think what was a seminal change in terms of policy was zero tolerance, in which it was true criminalization in practice of immigration. And that brought about, you invoke a different kind of legal system from what had been treated almost as a civil offense becomes a criminal offense, and then you're formally charging human like people with crimes and invoking the criminal justice system. So that's why you had toddlers being accused of crimes, families being separated because they have to be jailed in different situations, then building emergency facilities, so-called emergency facilities, to circumvent their own federal laws that don't allow for young people to be detained for too long. But just to go ahead with it, first you started seeing when people, I think it was Title 42, but there was a whole myriad of laws that were enacted that expected people to wait on the Juarez side for a very, like you were saying, legal right to claim asylum. And that's one of the things that's important to highlight, that the majority, that is important for people to understand, that this is a legal process in which most folks were involved in to seek asylum in the United States. It just so happened that in the first iterations of that, people were being expected to wait in Juarez. And so you started seeing in Juarez, we started helping on that side because we always have first. We were born out of anti-detention work for children during family separation during the first administration of Trump. And now because there was so much need in Juarez, started doing it on both sides. But in essence, people were hunkered down along the riverbed, living in makeshift tents. We were going out there and supplying tents, whatever we could get our hands on, and distributed. If you could go to the next slide. And that led to an exodus of people coming to the U.S. side. And they started coming to our historical barrio, Segundo Barrio, and the historical Catholic church that was there, and all like hunkered down around the church, seeking safety and sanctuary at the church. And we moved a lot of our efforts to the church because it's Casa Carmelita, our institutional home, was right around the corner from Sacred Heart. And that's what got us more intensely involved in helping people, because these were people by the thousands out in the street. Now it's, ubiquitous to see this across the country, but this was ground zero for these policies. This was ground zero for what was happening, for this phenomenon of people being left out in the street to their own devices with no kind of apparatus to help them by the state, by local officials. And so it overwhelmed the existing humanitarian aid organizations that had always done a good job of providing relief, whether it be legal, whether it be temporary housing for people to get going to where they were going. So in essence, the pictures you see here, where it's thousands of people, and we're just bringing them in from the cold, feeding them whatever we could get our hands on, because the situation was that dire, is because there was no one else responding. And it's really hard to believe that this would happen in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. But nonetheless, this was the condition. And at a time that was particularly brutally cold. And so that we started taking people in, but again, because we were doing it in a much less formalized way than some other institutional organizations in El Paso, we didn't mind people bringing their pets, and it became such a powerful presence in our space. If you could change to the next slide. So one of the things we were doing, we were feeding people constantly. We'd stay out all night also to kind of monitor any abuses on the part of authorities, keeping water boiling to keep people warm, because sometimes people would be so cold they couldn't even hold the cups of coffee, and we literally would have to take some folks to the hospital. A lot of children we wound up taking to the hospital, and doing whatever we could to keep people warm. The lady that you see on the corner with a baby, I found her under a staircase in one of the most brutally cold days with a sick baby and had to take her to the emergency room. So these were like people in existential threat. I don't know if that's for people in El Paso. We saw it with our own eyes, and so we're witnesses and can testify to that. But for a lot of people, I don't think fully understood the intensity of that situation, and it was at our doorstep. Can you change it to the? So one of the things is came about from that is that Bridge Pups family started coming to us through you, Ruby, and I don't think a lot of people know to the extent in which you help the families much more than the puppies. And I've heard people be critical, not fully understanding what you and your team did. And I give you so much credit for it because you're not the kind that's going to boast about it. But that was for those families, it was life affirming, life changing, and it really showed the depths of love and care that Paseños were showing to a community that was in such utter like pain and turmoil. But yeah, these are all the different pups I was highlighting, and I had a reel that's very similar to the one that you did. But in essence, you see Gabi, you see Animal, Georgina. These are all folks that came to be part of our like family.
Lucy ya va para 5 meses. Lucy is almost 5 months. She's still a pup. You heard the saying, a dog is a man or woman's best
You see
friend.
Gabi,
And it also says her dog,
Gabi,
Lucy.
children were there as well. And so this wedding photo, it's all the Bridge Pups family, and they were celebrating a wedding at Casa Carmelita. We had 6 weddings, 3 same-sex marriages, but all of those are Bridge Pup families. And that's, to me, is just speaks volumes, of how we really intentionally try to make people feel at home, and that included as biggest part is having the presence of pets. And I think the one that personifies it the best for me, and a lot of these folks that you were bringing, if you could change to the next slide, is Copitos, the most famous one of all of them. He's famous, so we have to acknowledge that. But he was kind of the star for various reasons, but the biggest one being is that Georgina, of course, went viral for that picture of her, crying over Copitos because she had brought him through on a backpack all the way from Venezuela. If you play the video, in the video, you can see them on the Bestia, and La Bestia coming from Venezuela. And she's kind of mocking everybody who said they wouldn't be able to make it.
¿Sí me está grabando? Sí, güey. Todavía sigo vivo, viejo pendejo.
There was kind of me saying, like, for all those people that thought we wouldn't make it, that would tell her all along the way that their cat was going to die, they would get kicked out of shelters. That's the extent to which she loved her cat. And it was just, super emotional.
If I can jump in really quick, that photo, I was at home. It was like 10:30 p.m. on a weeknight. I was getting ready for school, and I just got a call from a Border Patrol agent, one of the kind ones, and said, "We have a little girl here with her cat, and she's being separated from her entire family. And can you please come get her cat?" Of course, I threw on some clothes. I ran over there, and to see her there, I mean, just sobbing, with her beloved little Copito, and seeing the backpack, it was so beautifully packed. She had all his food, she had diapers for him, she had water bowls. I mean, it was just so moving and powerful, and just telling her, "Trust me, I will take care of your cat," because of course she didn't want to give him to me. She doesn't know who I am. And I promised her, I said, "I myself have 2 cats. I will absolutely take the best care of Copito." And yeah, Juan helped me so much with her. The little girl is named Yorina, and she's
And
thriving.
Georgina was so young,
Yeah.
and that's what I want people to know. You're talking about 17-year-olds. Like, there was multiple couples in our space that were younger than 20.
Yeah.
18 when we literally took them off the streets, and in the worst condition you can imagine. People, even the owners had fleas. Even owner, like, it's just so much pain and anguish. It was overwhelming, but the beautiful part is we really made a home, and made it feel like home, because migrants had the autonomy. We couldn't have done any of this without the help of the folks that we were bringing in. So Georgina, everyone else was participating in making food for the
Mhm.
migrants that were outside, helping clean, helping, like, truly a collaborative effort. And so, yes, Copitos passed the Darien Gap on the backs of their owners, and
Yeah.
it was such a beautiful, triumphant story. And if you see the next slide, they wound up staying with us for about a year. They became almost like my children. And we had families that went all over the country, and here you see them being very active in their community in Baltimore. That's part of food share they're doing at a local church that houses a lot of those families. The ones that are there in that church, uh, multiple families of ours went to that church, and so we made sure they went to communities in which they had a support system already lying there, and we helped them so much with paperwork. Your team was amazing at being able to get resources for them, to apply for permits and whatnot. So to do that for folks, provide so many essential needs for them to move on, was super, super, like, unprecedented. Most people don't get that kind of help. And so to be able to do this in family with their pets and loved ones, and I routinely get updates from Yorina and Copito. So if you could play the video, you'll see them, and they're so happy in their new home in Baltimore, of course now.
Saludos, señor Juan. Hola, señor Juan, hola.
With their
Ay, qué dormilón.
Baltimore, and I've been told he has many more children now.
Oh no. Okay,
They-
that's a problem. We
many
gotta
more.
we gotta work on that. Yeah.
No, but it was purposeful. It was purposeful. It was family planning. So they were welcome. They were welcome. But see if you can go to the next one. So for me, that
Saludos.
was one of the most triumphant examples. But pets in our work have been integral. Aspen is el burrito, the little donkey that sometimes goes with us up on the mountain. Nuestro burrito sabanero. He's just so cute. They put a pink cross on his little rear, so that they can see him from the helicopters and know he's one of our water droppers, because we drop off water now in the deserts surrounding El Paso to help migrant folks. But we always have had pets that accompany us on water drops. That in my family, that's my wife with her little cat. My family's huge cat lovers themselves. So pets have always been an integral part of, for us as indigenous people, and just honoring the earth, other sentient beings. And for me, that's a testament of not only how much people in this community cared for the human beings, but also the natural world. Big part of what we do is fighting the border wall, fighting all these other things, is also to protect our environment and our natural world as well. And pets have always been present. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight those examples, because to me they just speak volumes as to the work you all did for years, and that we all did for years to help families stay united, stay families in the worst of times. Because for a lot of folks, this was the worst experience they've experienced in their lives, and trekking through the entire hemisphere was not an easy task, and some of them, were teenagers. So
Yeah. Thank you
thank you
so
for letting me speak to that, because I
yeah,
know you don't
no.
speak about it.
Thank you so much, Juan. And we do have several questions that we've already gotten, so I'll turn those over to you at the end of the presentation. So thank you again, Juan. And now I'd like to turn over the spotlight to Mr. Alan Lizarraga, who is with an amazing organization as well here in El Paso. They are called the Border Network for Human Rights. They are truly one of the leading advocates, I would say, in the country when it comes to this type of work. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Alan. So thank you for joining us, Alan, and go ahead and tell us about your experiences.
Thank you, Ruby, and thank you, Juan, as well. It's a pleasure for me to join you all here. Hi everyone, again, my name is Alan Lizarraga. I'm the Communications Manager at Border Network for Human Rights. We're a community organization based here in El Paso, Texas. We dedicate ourselves to educating community members about their human and constitutional rights and making sure that they organize themselves to be able to make changes in our community. Um, I want to start off a little bit by grounding a little bit about the experiences of the border. I think all of us for the past few months and the past few days, we've seen the images coming out of Minneapolis, of Los Angeles, and of other communities in the interior of the United States. But I want to make sure that individuals understand that a lot of those strategies, a lot of those images that you have seen recently, we have seen them for the past 2, 3 decades here at the border. So Ruby, could you go to the next slide? I wanted to showcase this picture because I think it speaks to the reality that our families, that immigrants, the stories that Juan and Ruby have shared of what they have gone through. Here at the border, we have a broken immigration and asylum system, but we also have been inflicted by a narrative that targets communities of color, that targets the pursuit of safety as a criminal act. So this picture was actually taken, I believe, in 2023 or 2022, years before the second term of the Trump administration. And here in Texas, we have been seeing the development of policies that are, again, not just trying to criminalize people coming to search for safety, but also further militarize our border region and also criminalize individuals like us who are doing community work, people that are trying to reunite pets with their loved ones, people that are trying to reunite families, people that are just trying to be of support. But this picture shows you the truth about the border, that the people that are coming to our country in search of safety and refuge are families. They're parents, their mothers, their children, and they're people that are escaping, very dangerous conditions in their home countries, and that, they have the right to either petition for asylum or to seek, illegal venue to enter into our country. And what our state, what our federal government has chosen to do is instead deployed, military personnel at the border, establish Border Patrol as a paramilitary, agency, and essentially stripped individuals of their human and constitutional rights. So the work that we have been doing here at the border for the past 27 years is try to, again, to give our communities the education that they need to defend their rights and their dignity, but also try to change the narrative around our community around the border. Most recently, again, I think we have all seen, and many of us for the first time maybe have experienced, the failures of a broken immigration system. So we have been doing community education sessions on constitutional rights here in El Paso, but also along the border in Eagle Pass, in Presidio, and in Del Rio, Texas, and also in communities in Albuquerque. And every day and every time that we do these presentations, we see the need for more people to know their rights. We believe that knowing your rights is an initial light on defense for yourself, but it's also very important at this moment for all of us to stand up for the Constitution and the rights that were given to us. Um, as I was listening to this presentation about reuniting pets with their families, I think that's also another very important point that we need to talk about, the need for family reunification. And by family reunification, that includes pets as well, as we have, said it before. Here in El Paso and in communities across the border, we have thousands of families that have been separated from each other. We have parents and mothers that have been deported to Mexico, and the children are now here in the United States. So that is also something that we have been, calling for the attention of the rest of the country. Each year we try to have a very important event that is called Hugs Not Walls. And we have a documentary on Netflix, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you all. Um, but this event essentially, it showcases the failures of our immigration system and the attempt of our organization to try to reunite these families together, even if it's just for a brief few moments. Um, Another thing that I think it's important to talk about, and I heard it a lot in Ruby's conversation of, the good Border Patrol officer and the bad Border Patrol officer. And I think that's something that also speaks to the way our communities have been, working and community organizations have been working at the border. We recognize that, our own family members, our own community members, they're part of, Border Patrol, they're part of ICE, and there is willingness from us to work within the system to try to find solutions to the policies that are affecting our communities. A lot of the times we're only referred as the testing grounds, but we're also a place of innovative ideas, of proven solutions, as Ruby's organization is an example of. And we try again to work within the systems in our community and the key players in our community to try to bring dignity um, to our families and our communities. But that's a little bit of the work that we do. Again, we're very proud of the response that our community has given to those in need. But we're also very proud to be, challenging these policies and these systems that continue forcing us to develop solutions and develop, organizations and ideas when it's the federal government's responsibility to find a humane path forward.
So perfectly stated, Alan. Thank you so much for that. And he did put the link in the chat. I just realized, though, that only we are getting the links in the chat. So we will absolutely find a way to share that with you all. I'm sure one of our amazing My Dog is My Home techies can get that to you. If for some reason you're not able to see it, I will gladly share it on my Bridge Pups Rescue Instagram, and that if you all want to find it that way as well. I do want to leave some time for the Q&A, but I think the last maybe suggestions that I'd like to share to everyone that is attending here regarding assisting with families that have been either deported or arrested and are in facilities. Please do reach out to local rescues that are willing to help. Especially when it comes to just fostering the pets, keeping the families informed as best as possible. And there are also transport options to get them to rescues that are willing to help. Dog is my co-pilot is just one of them off the top of my head. And I would strongly urge you all to just share, the word of not rehoming these pets, especially if they do have owners, and of course using social media to shed light on this particular issue, because I think a lot of the times when people hear about the immigration issue or hear immigrants, it's just like this cold term. There's no stories of copito, or there's no llorinas in them, right? But once I think I can say this for all of us here, once we've been invested in this type of work, had these conversations with the immigrants, it no longer becomes, immigrants or immigration. These are people with hopes and dreams who have very often gut-wrenching stories that, I think unless you're doing the work, it's hard to really know those stories. So I think sharing all of these things that we've shared with you is one way that you can all help. It's just getting the word out on these types of stories. So with that said, we do have quite a few questions, which I thank you all for. I'm going to go in order of the ones that have the most votes. So if you want to go ahead and vote on the question, hopefully we can get to all of them. If for some reason we do run out of time, I'm also happy to answer questions on the Bridge Pups Rescue Instagram if you'd like to send me a message. And I'm sure Juan and Alan feel the same if you'd like to reach out to them as well. So the first question that has the most votes is, I'm assuming, addressed to me. Have you seen an increase in unkind Border Patrol agents given the current political climate? I will say yes. I think there is definitely, there's already been a strong legacy of those types of agents who have been very unwilling to help in what I do with immigrants. As I shared with you all in the PBS video, my brother does work for CBP, but he is one of the good ones. Okay, he's not out there hunting humans. He got this job back in 2012, and he just simply checks passports and papers for people entering. And he has very much been a champion of immigrant advocacy, and he's been very much involved, was very much involved in my Bridge Pups Rescue. But yes, I do think that there is a long legacy of that type of just mistreatment on the part of immigration agents. So hopefully that answers your question. The second question with the highest number of votes is, and I think this can go for all of us, for my fellow panelists, what is one way organizations can support immigrant families and protect their pets without contributing to fear or separation? For my end, I think it's what I just shared with you here in this particular slide. But if Alan or Juan, if you have any suggestions on how our attendees can help support immigrant families and their pets, by all means, feel free to chime in.
Well, with us, one of the things that's kept us going is, mutual solidarity and aid. So much of the material donations we get are from people across the country. Um, so we were giving out literally tens of thousands of pairs of shoes, of diapers. An actress, Kristen Bell, donated pallets of diapers at a time when it was desperately needed. And I remember we flooded all the local area shelters, like literally with almost half a year's worth of diapers. So our support system span the country. And El Paso tends to be a little insular in the way it operates sometimes. But with us, we've been very cognizant that we engage with people all over the country. We've kind of become a way station for resources. And we sit on a lot of resources because we understand that there's cycles of crisis here. And so a shelter can all of a sudden have a desperate need for some basic items like socks, underwear, like the norm, like hygiene kits. And so we have a lot of those in storages, so that when those things occur, we won't get caught like we got caught with Sacred Heart when it was literally went from a few dozen people out in the streets to literally thousands. And so, be as best prepared we can, especially in emergency situations like it was that time where people are in existential threat. But again, we're also connected to various groups and organizations that span the country that do humanitarian aid, mutual aid, migrant solidarity out of DC, and those really have helped us keep solvent. Some it's financial, but a vast majority of it was material.
I'll jump in very briefly. I think I already touched on it, but I think, the first one is, teaching people about the rights and years of learning, about the rights that we have in this country. Recently what we have been doing as an organization is preparing families to be ready in case an emergency situation does take place. So having those family, preparedness sessions with individuals of knowing, where they're going to delegate the care of their children, of their pets, being able to be financially, prepared in case something does happen. I think right now, we are having to have those hard conversations with individuals, but it's also about empowering them, with that constitutional rights education and knowing that, there is people, fighting for their rights, and that there is, a system that in a way, can prevent, the separation or at least alleviate in the case that it does happen.
Thank you both. Yeah, excellent suggestions. The next question is, I think, addressed to me. What are you seeing now with the pets left behind by all the deportations? Whew, gosh, I think we would need another session for me to explain just the profound sadness regarding the current phase that we're in of Bridge Pups Rescue. It's an entirely different phase that we're in, and one that I never really anticipated. So we're at a standstill. There have been no immigrants that have been arriving with their pets, obviously. And because of these deportations now, what I've had to do is meet families on the other side of the border. So I will meet them. I will take their pets to Ciudad Juarez and reunite them with their pets there. and then they make their journey. Some of them have established new lives in Mexico City. I have one family in Delicias, Chihuahua. However, there is a really, really upsetting side to this. I'm not able to reunite the pets with their families that have been deported through, for example, the CBP home program. I think one of the most heartbreaking examples that I'll share with you as briefly as I can. Back in, I believe, 2023, I was contacted by an immigrant woman. She was still making her way through the journey from Colombia. I initially thought she was from Venezuela, but she was actually from Colombia. And she reached out and she had, I mean, all of these families are very desperate in asking me for help. But this woman was especially desperate in getting me to reassure her that if she made it to our border, that I would be able to help her with her pet. The dog's name is Perris. And I reassured her. I said, yes, please keep me posted every step of the way. And she did. She let me know her journey from the Darien Gap all the way through Mexico until the day that she arrived to the border, and I was able to coordinate with Border Patrol to get the dog picked up. I didn't know anything about this woman. I immediately placed Perris with a foster. Once the woman, and her name is Neymar, once Neymar was released and we had a conversation, it was probably one of the hardest conversations I've ever had with anybody, not just in my work with immigrants. She shared with me that she made this perilous journey with her 10-year-old daughter and Perris. And Perris was a Christmas present to her 10-year-old daughter when her daughter had turned 5. And the daughter and Perris were extremely bonded. However, the little girl, she drowned in the Darien Gap. And Perris was all that this woman, Neymar, had left. Everything that belonged to the little girl was in her little Care Bears backpack. Her birth certificate, photos, her clothing, everything went down with her in the waters of the Darien Gap. So it made sense why she was especially desperate to make sure that I could help her with Perris. And I did. They were reunited, of course. One of my volunteers with Bridge Pups Rescue does all of the paperwork part, so helping them with every step of the way so that they can, do it the right way, as so many people are so critical about. Every single family that we've helped does it the right way. However, I want to say about 5, 6 months ago, Neymar was issued a letter stating that she was going to be deported. And so she was sent back to Colombia. And sadly, Perris is still here in my care through Bridge Pups Rescue. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So that's just one example of this phase that we're in, to which I don't have an immediate solution right now. I've never had to, think about solutions to these types of predicaments. But I'm absolutely hoping that I can eventually reunite Paris with Neymar in Colombia. I have to find a way. I just don't know the answer right now. So I do hope that answers that question. So thank you for that question. All right, next in the order, and I think this will probably be the last one since I know we are running out of time. The next one, I'm sorry here. Why is there not more awareness that this is happening? And I'm sure Alan and Juan have their own takes on it. I think who controls the media, right, has a very big hand in why there is not more awareness. The dehumanization is something that is done on a mass media level. So I think it just makes a lot of sense when we think about who is in control of those types of narratives and why there is not more awareness. But Alan and Juan, if you'd like to add anything the last minute that we have here.
Okay, I'll jump in because Alan didn't jump in right away. So I can't stress that enough. One of the things, and Alan spoke to it a bit when they were going over their presentation about the way the responsibility should lie on the state, and so often what very purposely happened here on the border is that the state itself was creating the chaos. And one of the things that we fully understood is that to change that narrative, we could show that we would be the order to that chaos. If you give us the resources, if you allow our communities the resources and the abilities to respond to these situations, we can even show those in power how it's done. Because like it should be reflective of our wants and needs, but sometimes it isn't, like you're seeing right now. And so for us, getting that narrative out of like this is chaos created by policy, and we argue purposefully. Whereas us, we can take the reins back of those narratives by showing, look at what we can do, even as an impoverished community, even as a marginalized community, even just from the secondary trauma, because the ones living the intensity are the families themselves. That's something we can do. Did we cut off? Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Juan, for that. Thank you all for your questions. I'm sorry we didn't have time to get to all of them. If you all would like to donate, help us, reach out to us, please do with our social medias, which you can find in our speaker bios. So I'm Bridge Pups Rescue, Alan is Border Network for Human Rights, and Juan Ortiz is Casa Carmelita. So thank you all so much again for your attention, your questions, and for all the work that you all are doing in your own ways. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Adios.
Chasing